welcome to the Cleansing Our Hearts podcast. I'm Esk flying solo today, but we have another special guest, a fellow mod of the Discord. This is Claire. Say hi, Claire.
Hi.
Given that it's Lent, we had this. Well, I shouldn't say I. It was the idea was put forth that I should interview Claire on her fasting experience. So I'm going to do that today, and hopefully you, the listener, of course, you will enjoy. So first question, can you explain exactly what fasting is from your perspective? And what's your biblical foundation for it?
Okay, so the way I look at fasting is going without food or something that you really desire, that you really is part of your life for a period of time to either get closer to God through prayer or just like taking the aching, the hunger pains of not eating and turning that into just a desire to be with God and putting God before that food that you're going without. Or another reason that I see for fasting, and I don't have like a Bible verse for this, but it's something that I know I've experienced a lot in fasting, is using fasting as a way to really just kind of get to what's going on in my heart, to reveal heart problems or idols. Maybe it's fasting from technology or video games, or it's even seeing in a food fast that you get angry, you get really snarky at the people around you. And then you can, through fasting that thing, prove to yourself that your happiness is not contingent on having this thing, and that your happiness is contingent or is founded in your relationship with God. So getting closer to God or fasting as a way to reveal kind of the things going on in your heart. The scripture that I have for this, both are in Matthew 6:16 through 18. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So I think this was the thing that really kind of like, when I first heard this about fasting, I was like, I didn't know that. It's when you fast. It's not if you fast, if you feel like it, or if society around you is really normalized spiritual fasting, which isn't really a thing in our society, but it's when you fast. And so we're expected to, in some way, not everyone can fast in the same way, go through this spiritual discipline of setting aside something we really feel like we need for what we really need. And the other thing highlighted in this text is that fasting is internal. It's not external. It's primarily between you and God. And the Pharisees and the hypocrites had a big problem of trying to do spiritual things externally for publicity's sake. And fasting was one of those things that they took advantage of. And so when we do fast, you may have a situation where you need to tell someone about it. A friend asks you out to lunch that day. Not a big deal to tell them about it, but it's not to be done for being a good little Christian or for looking like a good little Christian. And then the other verse that I've heard on fasting that I think really points to kind of the heart behind it is Matthew 9:14 and 15. This is the start of a larger passage larger thing that Jesus says, but it's just the beginning of it. Then the disciples of John came to him saying, "Why do we and the other Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast." The word mourning is used in this text, and I think that kind of gets at some of the heart behind fasting. It's an emotional thing. At this time, the disciples weren't fasting because they had Jesus. When they didn't have Jesus, when they lost him, and they really lost him, he died. They mourned for him. And now we didn't have Jesus in that same way, but we long for this fellowship with God. And one of the ways that we show that is through fasting. And so those are two verses that I think really point at the heart behind fasting and have been very insightful to me.
I absolutely love the second one. If in retrospect, you can't take it any other way than the bridegroom is going to be Christ, because the church is always referred to as the bride. The purpose of it, in that context of the verse, is because Jesus is gone. That's how we can get, to mourn his passing, but also look toward when he comes back.
Yeah.
The second coming. All right, so move on to the next question. In your experience, did fasting help bring you closer to the Lord? If so, how from your perspective?
Yeah, it had. I don't think that there has ever been a time that I have fasted that I have regretted doing it. But two examples stood out to me when I thought about this. I had a social media fast that I did for, I think it was a week. So locked down the apps on my phone and on my computer. And it was, as the week went on, really just showed to me how these things had penetrated every still moment of my day. I knew I had a problem with these things, but I wasn't on my phone as much as I knew some other people were. But through this week off, I saw how much I was on my phone and on social media and how it was affecting me. And so I enjoyed that part of it. And I spent that time listening to audiobooks and praying and enjoying it. And then finished my fast, broke my fast with some good old time on Instagram or time on Reddit or YouTube. I don't remember. But after that fast was over, I realized just how quickly those things took all that time back. And like a couple days after that fast ended, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm falling right back into those same patterns and something has to change. And so since then, I've been taking steps. I deleted Reddit off my phone that week. And now I have no social media on my phone. I hardly ever go on it on my computer. And it's not because I have this big thing against social media, but because I saw through that fast that I had put it on this little throne in my heart. And it did take me a little while to clue into the fact that something needed to change. But when I got that through my head, I was able to take those steps to change that. And through that, redeem some of that time to serve my family, to pray more, to just listen for opportunities around me, or be social, be of service outside of my house. And that was really, that wound up being really beneficial to me. Another fast that I had, and this was more of a traditional fast, a food fast, that it turned into, and I have a quote that I stole from a friend from church. And I think it sums up kind of the time I wound up having, where I was fasting to pray for someone who I knew was sick and just their situation, and not just that God might heal them, but also just for peace for their family. I knew that they were Christians, and I just really wanted to commit myself to praying for them. And I've learned a good way to get myself to not forget is to not eat, because my way of thinking about it is taking those hunger pains and turning them into fellowship with God, prayer. And so I spent so much of that day really praying. I still did my schoolwork. I still spent time with friends, but I was just so drawn into prayer. This is a quote from a friend from my church that was told to them the day that their daughter collapsed, and later we learned that she died. She went brain dead that day. So she was already with Jesus. But they were told by a friend, "I've been praying for you all day. And by that, I mean I can't stop." And when I heard this quote, I was really reminded of that fast that I had, because I was just so drawn into fellowship with God that I prayed not just for this friend, but for myself, for my church, for the rest of my friends. And that turned into just really worshiping. Like, I was looking through my phone and just singing worship songs and it was such a humbling and precious time with God. And while that situation turned out well for this friend, it was also just so, even if things didn't turn out that way, I know I would have walked away from that experience blessed because of the time I got to spend with God.
Definitely, when you take a deep look at yourself, or you're reading a book such as The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, you realize that how much of your time is taken up
Yep.
by little things.
That was the book that got me to do that social media fast.
In the case of for those of you listening at home, I read that book today, all of it. That's what we're talking about. No, but it's
a really good book.
It is a really good book. It's highly recommended. If you're feeling hurried or rushed or super busy, give it a read.
Yeah,
It's helped. Even I'm going to start doing some things, but like, it's just amazing how a 1 week fast could instantly change your view, or reading a book can instantly change your view. How accidentally busy you can make yourself just by wanting to go on social media, or playing a video game or watching a TV show.
Yeah.
That's all we have time for today. If you're listening to this, please shoot me or Popsicle an idea if you have a question or an idea that you would like to be talked about on the podcast. And again, thank you all for listening to the Cleansing Your Hearts podcast.